Bitcoin hits $20,000 as we move into uncertainty coming up from the election. The Virginia gubernatorial candidate suggests possibly going into martial law. So we'll talk a bit about what's going on there and what's wrong with that. House GOP leaders call on Pelosi to get rid of Swalwell, at least from the intelligence community. And an Indiana murder suspect jumps out of a van while it's stopped at a McDonald's. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Jeez. Good morning, folks. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. We've got a bunch of stuff to get to, but interestingly enough, most of everything that we have going on is not election related. I mean, we looked at all the stuff going on for quite a while here. Hold on a sec. I am way too hot on my leads. All right, that sounds a little bit better here. Yeah, we've got a bunch of stuff to get to over on the news today, but it's not all election related. It's not all just centered on Donald Trump is evil, Donald Trump is evil. And I've noticed this as we're coming in here, as we go along, as we talk more and more, and as the Electoral College voted. The news is going to have to find a lot more stuff to get you outraged about. And I'm seeing this here as, we look at stories about the Indiana guy that jumped out of the van, Denmark changing their classification for immigrants, Swalwell being in the news, and everybody talking about secession and martial law. It's nothing about the presidency anymore. And just another little observation, if you'll let me indulge for just a half a second here. I've also noticed that it did seem to be the big mainstream and left-wing news outlets that were capitalizing on the Trump bump. And I noticed this while I was organizing. I just kind of put this together this morning, but I noticed while I was organizing the news every morning, because I use an ad blocker, that the big mainstream outlets, CNN, Fox, MSNBC, NBC, anything with NBC on it, but also your New York Times, your Washington Post, everything like that. The first thing they do is tell you, New York Times and Washington Post say, don't look at us unless you have a subscription, but they all say you're using an ad blocker. Turn it off before you come here because we want you to see our ads. And I've talked about it before with the Trump bump. They were driving more people to their outlets, seeing more advertising. All they had to do was say, Donald Trump tweeted this, and 10,000 people flocked to their websites to come back and say, I was the first one to look at did you see the Trump story? Let me read about the Trump story and see what CNN had to say. And your eyes hit 50 ads at 3 cents a pop or whatever the hell it is for CNN. And CNN makes bank. So I wonder what they're going to do coming into the media now that they're trying to hide this up, cover this up, and go back to reporting actual news, just not every little scandal that comes out of the White House. That was my little mini rant. Let's look into the news, but before we get into that, head on over to freedomscoop.com. Freedomscoop.com is going to be your one-stop shop for all of your news and commentary needs, carrying great shows such as The Generational Gap, The R-Rated Conservative, Lunch Break with John, The Daily Ignoramus, Call Me Ignorant, which we haven't seen for quite a while, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The Freckles and Brit Show, and much, much more. We've got so many programs over there, it's not funny. And we hope that you go back and check them all out. They're great programs, made by great people, men and women who have come together to talk about what is going on in the country and how it affects us. So head on over there, pick up some of our swag, and help us support great creators. All right, starting with the Dow as usual. The Dow is back up over 30,000. It looks like now that they said that the vaccine's coming out, everyone wants to invest because they want to be the first one to profit once all of industry goes back up under a Joe Biden presidency. And we will have peace. So we're back up over 30K. Everyone's trying to attribute the vaccine and the opening back up to their favorite politician, whether it be the Bernie Bros, the Bidenites, the Trumpsters, the Never Trumpers. They're all trying to attribute it to their favorite person, but yet we have no idea what happens, and I'm still not taking the goddamn vaccine. And an interesting side note, since I know that Spartan likes to see this here, Bitcoin has hit $20,000, which actually I think might be a little bit bad going into the Biden presidency, because if Bitcoin's hitting $20,000 per Bitcoin, it leads me to believe that not a lot of people right now have a lot of faith in what the United States dollar is going to do. And I don't blame them, because I don't have a lot of faith in what the US dollar is going to do, especially if they're going to go money printer go brr one more time under the Trump presidency. And then they can come back and tell everybody how evil it is that Donald Trump came out and he blew out the spending, he had the debt, he destroyed the economy, and these next 4 years after the lockdown and after terrible Democrat policies, well, this is just the Trump economy. Do with it what you will. This is the Trump economy. Just make sure you vote for us again in 4 years, because then that'll really kickstart that economy. And spoiler alert, it won't. All right, let's talk from... Oh, Jesus Christ. I swear I check these before I get started, and every time, by the time I get started, they've already got the subscription board up there. So, screw them. We're going to stop using them. Out of CNBC, though, stock futures rise on stimulus progress. Dow set to open 95 points higher. From Maggie Fitzgerald. U.S. stock futures rose slightly on Wednesday as lawmakers appeared to make progress on a fiscal stimulus. Market participants are also looking to the Federal Reserve's comments on Wednesday about the future of the U.S. economy. Dow Jones Industrial Average Futures pointed to an opening gain of about 95 points. S&P 500 futures rose 0.3%. NASDAQ 100 futures gained 0.3%. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, and House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy met Tuesday to strike a bipartisan aid deal. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin called into the talks. "I'm optimistic that we're going to be able to complete an understanding sometime soon," McConnell said Tuesday night after the meeting. Schumer said the leaders are making progress and hopefully we can come to an agreement soon. On Tuesday, the major average bucked a several-day streak of negative sessions, with all three indices closing with gains. The Dow Jones Industrial climbed nearly 340 points, helped by a 5% jump in Apple stock. The S&P 500 climbed 1.3%, snapping a 4-day losing streak. The NASDAQ composite ended the day 1.25% higher at a new record. The Russell 2000 Small Cap Index closed up 2.4% at a new record close. The first plan calls for $748 billion in spending for programs liked by both Republicans and Democrats, which is probably a good indicator that maybe you shouldn't be liking these programs yourself, including federal unemployment benefits and additional loans under the Paycheck Protection Program. That's nice. Where's the money coming from? And is Joel Osteen going to get millions of dollars out of this Paycheck Protection Program? Is Walmart going to get millions of dollars out of this? Are big name, high dollar, $1 million companies going to be getting this Paycheck Protection Program? I have problems with this because I saw who embezzled the last set. A second $160 billion bill would include the more controversial areas of business liability protections and financial aid to state and local governments. Basically, what it boils down to is they're making two separate bills so they can get Nancy Pelosi's pork in, but they can give the finger to Mitch McConnell's pork. Stimulus remains a key focus for the market, as it is the necessary bridge to expansive vaccinations. Lindsay Bell, chief investment strategist for Ally Invest, told clients, market participants would like to see a deal sooner rather than later, given the expectations for economic data to slow near term. In the absence of a deal, turbulence could pick up. The deadline on stimulus looms amid some of the darkest days of the pandemic. The U.S. is recording at least 250,000 400 new COVID-19 cases, and at least 2,300 virus-related deaths each day. Citation needed, please. But notice they say virus-related, not virus deaths, based on a 7-day average, calculated by CNBC using Johns Hopkins University data. The Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine rollout continued across the U.S. on Tuesday. The Federal Reserve will release its statement with projections on the stance of monetary policy Wednesday afternoon, while the Fed's long-term view is expected to be improved due to the vaccine. The central bank is expected to sound very dovish at the end of the meeting. Money printer, go burr. And nobody's going to talk about the debt until Joe Biden is sworn in, and then every Republican's going to be like, well, the debt, what was the debt when Barack Obama left? It's interesting, though, once they were talking about stimuli and throwing money at the people and throwing the money at their business buddies, because that's a big part of what the stimulus did. They stopped talking about the debt. And right now, by the way, one thing to keep in mind, and I've noticed this over on Twitter, if you start talking about the national debt to people who have a red rose in their profile indicating that they are democratic socialists, they will come out and say, well, you need to learn MMT. The government is a free entity, and they can just print the money to pay their bills. MMT, that's what you need to know. That's going to be the new norm for America. Yeah. Tell me how that works out for you guys. Make a bigger share of less GDP. Tell me how that's going to work for you guys. All right, let's keep going. Let's get into the regular news. From the Hill, starting off the day, GOP gubernatorial candidate in Virginia calls on Trump to declare martial law, from Jonathan Easley. Do not vote for this woman, I'm telling you right now. And this is coming from somebody who believes that Ralph Northam is an asshole. But anybody who would call for martial law, do not vote for that person. Do not. If you are in Virginia, do not vote for this woman. That right there should disqualify her for public office. Don't give a fuck what the letter next to her name is. And I mean, Northam is disqualified from public office too. Imagine being so bad that Ralph Northam, who we don't know if he was the guy in blackface or the Klansman in the yearbook, who came out with the bill. I'm sorry, he didn't come out with it, but was ready to sign the bill allowing parents to have a delivered child that they didn't want and decide whether or not to kill it after it was born. Imagine being so bad that you make Ralph Northam look good by comparison. State Senator Amanda Chase, a Republican candidate for governor in Virginia, called on President Trump to declare martial law to keep Joe Biden from being sworn in as the next president. Writing in a Facebook post early in the morning on Tuesday, Chase said Biden is not my president and never will be. Stop fucking doing that shit, people. Stop. Right now. I understand that large swaths of the Trump base are former Democrats who are used to doing this kind of thing. But stop doing that. He is your president if he gets sworn in on January 21st. You are not a progressive. You are not going to write "not my president" across your tits like some people I know. Stop doing this. That is bad. While linking to a New York Times story detailing how the Electoral College had certified Biden's election victory, she echoed Trump's unsubstantiated claim that Biden had cheated to win. Susan, this was a completely above board election. No fraud ever evident, ever. Wink, wink, honk, honk. And she said that many other Americans will never accept these results. Most likely. Fair elections, we can accept, but cheating to win, never. Now, you've been expecting it for 6 decades at this point. So thankful President Trump has the backbone and refuses to concede. President Trump should declare martial law, as recommended by General Flynn, Chase wrote. The U.S. has never declared martial law, which gives the military broad powers in a time of crisis at the federal level, but it has been used in some instances at state and local levels during disasters or times of unrest, such as in Hawaii following the attack on Pearl Harbor. It is a legal gray area, and any effort by Trump to use the military to overturn the election results would immediately be thwarted by Congress or the Supreme Court. And as much as I don't want to see Biden win either, I support that. Because that opens the door for a person like Kamala Harris to use martial law to get her agenda passed. We don't want to give these people this power and this precedent. You don't want to give that to these people. Trump's legal challenges to the election have been broadly dismissed by the courts, including the Supreme Court. The president and his campaign have not been able to prove the wild accusations they've made on social media and cable news. The Electoral College and the states have certified Biden the winner. Congress will confirm the Electoral College vote count on January 6th, and Biden will be sworn in on January 20th. Well, we're not there yet. The window is narrow, don't get me wrong, but we're not there yet. But Chase's remarks reveal how a segment of Trump's most fervent supporters insist the election was stolen and are proposing increasingly radical solutions to avert the outcome. Completely above board, Susan. Of course. Nothing bad happened at this election. Honk honk. Chase says she's working with pro-Trump attorney Sidney Powell, there's your first mistake, to expose what I and others believe is extensive fraud here in Virginia. And that I could believe. Because we saw the whole night Virginia declared immediately for Biden, in spite of the fact that on election night, there was probably a 12 to 15 point gap that Biden would have had to make up. And yet they called it for they called it for Biden right away. Chase and DEL Curt Cox are seeking the GOP nomination for governor in Virginia to replace outgoing Governor Ralph Northam, whose term expires in November. Former Governor Terry McAuliffe, State Rep Jennifer Carroll Foy, Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax, and State Senator Jennifer McClellan are seeking the Democratic nomination. Yeah, unfortunately, the whole call for martial law on a federal level should probably immediately disqualify you for office, because that is the most anti-federalist thing you can do, is call for the federal government to use the military to crack down and impose the federal will over the rest of the country. That's not what the founders wanted. And once again, making that precedent puts that power into the hands of Kamala Harris. Keep that in mind. This is a longer term thing than just what happens between now and January 20th. So, let's keep going here. Speaking of the Biden campaign. Oh, screw that. I guess I can't read from Mediaite. All right, reading from CNN instead. Joe Biden picks Pete Buttigieg to be Transportation Secretary. From Dan Merica. Joe Biden will nominate Pete Buttigieg to be his Transportation Secretary, the president-elect said in a statement on Tuesday, elevating the former South Bend, Indiana mayor and 2020 Democratic presidential candidate to a top post in the federal government. You know, that goes back to sitting here thinking about what happened in the primaries. Joe Biden walks up, gives Pete Buttigieg a little sniff in the hair. Come on, man, and just drop out, man, okay? And I promise you that you're gonna get a cabinet position. I wonder how many of those candidates actually got promised a big candidate Holy shit, I can't talk right now. I have to wonder how many of these candidates got promised a cabinet position for doing that, and how many former candidates we're going to see in this cabinet, because, of course, they dropped out and let everybody unify behind Joe Biden, delivering the victory over Bernie Sanders, who looked otherwise like he was coming in looking ready for a win. They all got out of the way. Everyone solidified behind Joe Biden. Joe Biden went off and sniffed a little kid and said, "Come on, man." And now he's poised to be the president. Somehow. He can't form a cogent, coherent sentence unless he's jacked so full of fucking Adderall that you can't see straight through him. But hey, he's gonna have the nuclear football. How does that make you feel? Buttigieg would be the first Senate-confirmed LGBTQ. Jesus. Why does that matter? Why does it matter who he fucks? Cabinet Secretary, should his nomination make it through the chamber. Mayor Pete is a patriot and a problem solver who speaks to the best of who we are as a nation, Biden said. I'm nominating him for Secretary of Transportation because his position stands at the nexus of so many of the interlocking challenges and opportunities ahead of us. Those of you who work on diesel engine vehicles, including heavy trucks, and light passenger vehicles, prepare for an even harder lockdown on what's going to happen with diesel engines coming up, because it's coming. You think DEF was bad? It's coming. Something worse is coming at this point. Biden added that he sees the Department of Transportation as the site of some of our most ambitious plans to build back better, and that he trusts Mayor Pete to lead his work with a focus of decency and a bold vision. Come on, man. The choice, which represents the first time President-elect has called on one of his former Democratic presidential opponents to join his administration as a cabinet secretary, while it's a candidate Biden spoke glowingly of after the primary into a top job into his incoming administration, and could earn Buttigieg what many Democrats believe is needed experience should he run for president again. So, Buttigieg is going to be the transportation secretary. Prepare for crackdowns on the DOT. I mean, you think e-logs are bad. Just wait. More is coming. All right, let's keep going here. From the New York Post, Fauci suggests Biden, Harris, and Trump should get the COVID-19 vaccine as soon as possible. From Mark Moore. President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris should get the new COVID-19 vaccine as quickly as possible, Dr. Fauci said on Tuesday. For security reasons, I really feel strongly that we should get them vaccinated as soon as we possibly can. We want him fully protected as he enters into the presidency in January. So that would be my strong recommendation. Fauci, the nation's top infectious disease expert, said on ABC's Good Morning America. He also urged President Trump to get the coronavirus vaccine, even though he recovered from the bout with the disease in October. Yeah, if he just had the disease, why does he need the vaccine? If you were asking me, I would recommend that he do that as well as Vice President Mike Pence. You still want to protect people who are very important to our country right now, Fauci said. Fauci, a member of the White House coronavirus task force, whom Biden tapped as his chief medical advisor, added that Trump probably has coronavirus antibodies. We're not sure how long the protection lasts, so to be doubly sure, I would recommend that he get vaccinated as well as the vice president, he said. Biden, speaking to reporters as he prepared to travel to Georgia to campaign for Democratic candidates in the Senate runoff election in Georgia, said he would take Fauci up on the offer. Dr. Fauci recommends that I get the vaccine sooner than later. I want to make sure that when we do it by the numbers, when I do it, my nose will be clear, so I can sniff little kids, okay? That you'll notice it and we'll do it publicly, Biden said. The first federally approved COVID-19 vaccine rolled out in the U.S. on Monday, the same day the country's death toll from the pandemic exceeded 300,000. Citation needed, please. The vaccine, developed by Pfizer and BioNTech, was granted emergency use authorization by the Food and Drug Administration on Friday evening. Yeah, I don't trust... If a government official is telling you you need to get the virus, or I'm sorry, if you need to get the vaccine, especially if you've had the disease already, this gives me further reason not to trust anything that's coming out of these people's mouths. I have no reason to trust the government at this point, and you shouldn't either. All right, let's keep going. From Fox News, we're going to get an autoplay, but you're not going to be able to see it, or hear it rather, because I've got your sound turned off. But Tulsi Gabbard is getting slammed from leftover bill protecting abortion survivors. From Sam Dorman. Representative Tulsi Gabbard is facing a wave of backlash from the left after she introduced legislation designed to ensure infants receive proper medical care after surviving abortions. Introduced on Tuesday, the amendment bore resemblance to another born-alive bill that House Democrats rejected earlier this year. Some on Twitter argued that Gabbard was attacking women's rights, of course they are, and trying to address a non-existent problem. Jill Filipovic says Tulsi Gabbard also introduced a redundant bill that claims to protect infants in the infinitesimally rare cases they're born after attempted abortions. Infants are already legally protected, but in fact just criminalizes doctors that vilifies women and fearmongers about abortion. If you're not worried about it, why not let it get passed into law? If it's infinitesimally small, then just let it get passed. If it's that little of a deal, but unless there's something else in there that you don't want to happen. Democrats have generally argued that legislation is redundant as the Born Alive Infant Protection Act already guarantees care for babies who survive abortions. That particular bill clarified that born alive children had the same rights as others, but didn't directly apply penalties in the statute itself. National Review's Alexandra DeSantis has argued that born alive legislation is necessary for that very reason. Imani Gandhi, an editor at Rewire, also denied that infants were born alive after abortions. "Hi, Tulsi Gabbard," she tweeted. "You seem to be under the impression that born alive is a thing. It's not. Shame on you. I don't know what your problem is, but you're turning out to be a very real right-wing shit heel." Interesting. Tulsi Gabbard is a socialist with a massive hard-on for taking your guns away. And yet, she is apparently a right-wing shitheel. Because she wants more workers to come up and be comrades and be part of the socialist economy. What is ours is yours. What is yours is ours. Laws like Gabbard's are generally intended to protect individuals like Gianna Jessen, who claims to have survived a botched saline abortion. The CDC reported that between 2003 and 2014, 143 infants were born alive during abortion attempts. It is possible that this number underestimates the total number of deaths involving induced termination, the CDC noted, in some cases. When a vague term such as termination of pregnancy was reported as due to a severe congenital anomaly or a maternal complication, it was impossible to determine whether the pregnancy terminated spontaneously as a result of an anomaly or complication, or whether the mother elected to terminate because of the anomaly or complication. So, yeah, they hate Tulsi at this point. The Mary Sue. Tulsi Gabbard made sure to exit Congress, introducing some horribly anti-transgender and anti-abortion bills. Maggie Smith. Tulsi, please, if you're in your final days as a member of Congress and you choose to spend time introducing bills that are blatantly anti-trans and anti-choice, you're in the GOP. Yeah, no. No, she's not. But, here you go. We could go back to the idea of safe, legal, and rare. But they don't want that. On demand, government paid up to the moment of birth. And possibly after, if you're Governor Ralph Northam. So, we'll see what happens with this. I have no faith that this is going to go anywhere, but at least good on her for throwing it out there. Making them defend their positions. Apparently, ABG has got a gift for me. Go away. Let's keep going here. From the Daily Wire. Republican alternate electors barred entry into Michigan Capitol for electoral vote. From Amanda Prestigiacomo. Republican officials in Michigan and members of an alternative slate of electors intended to cast votes for President Trump were barred entry to the state's Capitol building by Michigan State Police troopers on Monday evening. Video shows about a dozen Republican officials alongside the alternate electors attempting to gain access to the building to reportedly vote for President Trump in the Electoral College vote. Trump's legal team has leveled several legal challenges questioning Joe Biden's victory in the state. Monday morning, Trump senior advisor Stephen Miller said the campaign would attempt to seat alternate slates of electors in key states in order to preserve the president's objections to the official vote tally. As seen in footage from the encounter, a trooper tells the electors, later identified by the Detroit News to indeed be Republican electors, that per Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer's office, the electors are not to be permitted into the building. When the Republicans tell the troopers that they're electors, he still bars their entry. The electors are already here. They've been checked in, he said. Not all the electors are inside, the Republicans insisted. The Capitol is closed, the trooper responds, nothing that he was advised by the governor's staff that the 16 official electors are already here and sworn in. Let's have a watch and a listen.
For the Capitol Commission, for the Governor's Office, for the Speaker of the House, for the Speaker of the Senate, the Capitol is closed unless you have an office here to conduct business today, or if you are taking part in the Electoral College process. Anybody else is not permitted to come into the Capitol.
We're electors.
We're electors. Yeah, the electors are already here. They've been checked in.
Not all the electors are inside.
Capitol is closed. All 16 electors that we've been advised by the governor's staff that we're going to be here to vote in the Electoral College have been checked in. They're already here.
But the GOP electors, I'm sorry.
I understand.
Dare,
Yeah.
Dare, Ian's here.
The Capitol
Captain?
is closed. Everybody that's permitted
Captain,
is
forward.
here. For the Capitol Commission, for the Governor's Office, for the Speaker of the House.
So that's what we're seeing up out of Michigan here. And, I mean, honestly, I don't know how legal this actually is. I would have to look in to see what Michigan's law is for faithless electors or trying to seat a different slate. This could perfectly very well be above board for the GOP to be able to bring a slate of electors. There could be no law in the books calling this out there. This could be an executive order. That would be probably unconstitutional, but once again, we would have to look into Michigan's constitution and see how they handle things like this. A lot of this is unprecedented, and I see a lot of laws and amendments coming up in various states to make sure that this is either above board and legal or never happens again. But as of right now, this is a big electoral gray area. We have no idea, and we'll see what happens out of it. But the electors have been the electoral votes have been cast at this point. All right, let's keep going. From CNN, House GOP leaders ask Pelosi to remove Swalwell from Intelligence Committee. From Daniela Diaz. House Republicans sent a letter Tuesday to Speaker Nancy Pelosi asking that Democratic Rep. Eric Swalwell of California be removed from the House Intelligence Committee following a report that he had been targeted by a suspected Chinese intelligence operative as part of a broader effort to establish ties with U.S. politicians. The woman at the center of the operation, Fang Fang, or Christine Fang, took part in fundraising activity for Swalwell's 2014 re-election campaign and helped place an intern in his office. According to Axios, I was told about this individual and I offered to help, he told CNN's Jim Sciutto last week. All I did was cooperate. The letter, which was signed by prominent GOP House members, including Minority Whip Steve Scalise of Louisiana and Republican Conference Chairwoman Liv Cheney of Wyoming, asked for Pelosi to remove Swalwell because the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence handles the most sensitive information. We write to you today out of concern with Congressman Eric Swalwell's reported close contacts with Chinese Communist Party spy recently reported by Axios. Because of Representative Swalwell's position on the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, his close interactions with Chinese intelligence services, however unintentionally they may be, are an unacceptable national security risk, the Republicans wrote in the letter. HBSCI handles some of the most sensitive information our government possesses, information critical to our national defense. As such, we urge you to immediately remove Representative Swalwell from his position on the House Intelligence Committee. The letter was provided to CNN by Cheney's office and first reported by the Washington Examiner. So, and absolutely he should be. He should definitely not be on the Intelligence Committee because he apparently has no idea what's classified, what's not. And he apparently doesn't have the intelligence to keep from hooking up with a spy. Apparently. And this whole thing seems compromised. I can believe. It's California. But I can't believe he makes it another term in California. I wouldn't be surprised if they held a recall for him. Or an impeachment. Well, no, I would be surprised if they held an impeachment. But, yeah, I don't know if he makes it in 2022. I have no idea. Or if we just completely forget about this. But there again, this is the same guy that threatened to nuke half the country and is still seated as a U.S. representative. So figure that out. All right, let's keep going. From the Hill, Texas GOP chair denies he floated secession over election results. From Dominic Mastrangelo. Go away, autoplay. The chairman of the Texas Republican Party denied he suggested the state secede from the United States after the Supreme Court tossed out a lawsuit from officials there seeking to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election in other states. This decision establishes a precedent that says that states can violate the U.S. Constitution and not be held accountable, Chairman Allen West said in a statement. Following the Friday night ruling, perhaps law-abiding states should bond together and form a union of states that will abide by the Constitution. West's comments sparked controversy, with some saying his comments would be taken for advocacy of Texas's secession from the rest of the country. Illinois Rep. Adam Kinzinger, a Republican, called for West to be fired. In a statement on Monday, West denied supporting secession. I found some of the responses to these words rather perplexing. Actually ignorant, West said. Oh boy, you would have thought me to be the Antichrist. But consider these words. They borrowed from the same ideas contained in our preamble to our Constitution, of forming a more perfect union. I'm still trying to find where I said anything about secession. West argued that states who, he says, have violated the Constitution by certifying what he and other Republicans have alleged to be fraudulent votes for President-elect Joe Biden are the real perpetrators of secession. The former Florida congressman said he stands by his original statement and the Supreme Court's ruling in the Texas case is bad for democracy. The Texas lawsuit was rejected by the highest court in the land, charged with interpreting our law, articulating a clear choice, he said. Either we're a nation of laws that establishes how we are to be governed, or we are a nation where ideologues pick and choose what is applicable to them, to the detriment of those who follow the law. We're actually a nation of independent free states that make the laws on a state level. But somehow that's been lost in the last 240 years. Somehow that sentiment went away, and we became a nation of top-down federal laws and mandates. And as I've always said, wouldn't it be nice if we didn't have to care who the president was, because for the most part, all the president does is handle matters of interstate commerce and make sure that we're represented in a good light to foreign nations, you know, like the founders intended. Wouldn't that be nice? It's never going to go back to that, but wouldn't that be nice? All right, from the Blaze. If you voted for Trump, there is a racist bone in your body, sitcom actress Wanda Sykes hit with the facts after defaming Trump voters. From Dave Urbanski, sitcom actress and stand-up comic Wanda Sykes hopped on Twitter over the weekend and accused those who voted for President Trump last month of being racist. Are we having some problems here? I just noticed that I have video lag. I have no audio on DLive, so I opened the YouTube channel for the audio, but it was lagging. I wonder if I'm having problems over here. It looks like everything's going fine. Of course, I can't hear it on the monitor over here, but looks like everything's running fine over on my end. I guess we'll have to see later. Sitcom actress and stand-up comic Wanda Sykes hopped on Twitter over the weekend and accused those who voted up President Trump last month of being racists. Well, Trump voters aren't total racists, she said, but at the very least, teeny tiny parts of them probably would give standing ovations to the Ku Klux Klan. Here's the tweet. If you voted for Trump, there's a racist bone in your body. It might be in your pinky toe, but it's there. Praying for you. She followed up that tweet saying, or maybe you're just a greedy bastard. The Blackish cast member, who boasts over 500,000 Twitter followers, certainly has her fans, and a number of them jumped at the chance to give Sykes virtual fist bumps. But others were less than pleased, and some even offered her some facts to chew on, like the user who shot back with, so the 19% of black males who voted for Trump up from 13% in 2016 are racist. That's shocking. Indeed, support for Trump at the polls increased among minority voters. Since he was first elected, he garnered 8% of the black vote in 2016 and 12% in 2020. Trump got 28% of the Latino vote in 2016 and 32% in 2020. The Wall Street Journal reported. So it may not be the best look for Sykes to essentially call a large number of black and Latino voters racist because they marked their boxes for Trump, or maybe she just forgot to do her homework. Others had the following to say to Sykes. You're a hypocrite and a liar, black conservative talk show host Jesse Lee Peterson wrote. You need to forgive yo mama and your daddy and overcome being such a nasty woman. Another user piggybacked on Peterson's rebuttal. Here's the tweet. Wanda, you live and work in La La Land, the place of make-believe, and I'm supposed to believe what you say is truth. Beware the children of the lie. Whoa, I voted for Trump mainly because of what he would do to help black Americans, and he did not disappoint, another commenter told Sykes. You might want to look at President-elect Joe Biden's history of racist comments and actions. Fact check true. Come on, man, it was a different time, okay? I just didn't want my kids to go to school in a racial jungle. Newsflash, I voted for Trump and I'm not a racist. It is you and your ilk that keep the racist garbage going, another user said. You used to be my favorite person on the old Christine shows. Sound racist to you? It's because I'm not. Sick of this race baiting by the Dems. Stop already. Yeah, there is a tinge of racism coming out of the left. Apparently, the Democrat Party owns the black vote, and if you're black, you're only allowed to vote for Democrats. You're not allowed to do anything else, according to people like Sykes. And that's going to be something that we see coming up in 2022 and 2024, and it's probably going to be turned up to fucking 11 at this point. All right, let's keep going. From CBS 2 out of Los Angeles. Black Lives Matter nativity scene draws attention at Claremont Unified Methodist Church. From CBS LA staff. Like other churches, Claremont Unified Methodist Church set up a holiday nativity scene, but they did it with a twist. Their nativity scene depicted black individuals and paid homage to Black Lives Matter movement. It's an eye-opener. Just makes you think about stuff and gets people talking about what's going on, said Jennifer Barge, who saw the presentation. What caught her eye were the figures of Mary, Joseph, and baby Jesus surrounded by images of masked people holding signs saying Black Lives Matter and I Can't Breathe. At the very top of the nativity scene, read the names and dates of dozens of black men and women shot and killed by police with the phrase, say their names, a protest against police brutality and racial injustice in America. It's just sad to see all that. A lot of it I didn't know was up there. A lot of the names from when I was younger. One from 1955, he's 14, and it's just my kid is 19, and it just breaks my heart, Barge said. The church is known for adding a twist to their nativity scenes each December, highlighting a hot-button issue in American history. Last year, they showed images of children in cages, reflecting on the plight of immigrants and asylum seekers whose families were separated at the U.S.-Mexico border. Yeah, isn't that going to be nice? When the media goes back next year and stops reporting on the kids in cages because it's no longer politically convenient. Trust me, they're not shutting that shit down. They are not shutting that shit down. But the media is going to stop reporting on it. Just don't say a word about it. I'm going to see if I can go down there and actually see some of that stuff and see if it's actually still going under the Biden administration. See if I can get taken down on YouTube. Plus, then I can go hang out with Seawald and Wyatt. But yes, now they have the black nativity scene, which, okay, given the region, it wouldn't surprise me at all to find out that some of the people involved might have been black. Israel, and especially Nazareth, were massive centers of trade and travel. Coming in from Africa, coming in out of Europe and Greece, coming in out of the port and coming back from the rest of the Arabian Peninsula. There's a good chance that somebody passing through, or somebody who would have been involved, a shepherd, or somebody else like that, was black. But there again, we also sing about the three kings from the Orient. So there were probably Asian people in there, but of course, this is more of a social justice thing than actually any sort of news going on with that. So definitely Definitely something to see. And we'll see what social justice message comes next year off of this. All right, from the New York Post. Cuomo signs bill banning sale of Confederate flags. This came to me in the Discord from Elaine from over on the Red Ned Show. From Bernadette Hogan and Carl Campanile. Governor Andrew Cuomo signed a bill into law aimed at banning the sale of hate symbols such as Confederate flags or the swastika on state property, even while admitting the new edict might clash with the First Amendment and be struck down as unconstitutional. The new law, effective immediately, prohibits the sale of hate symbols on public grounds, including state and local fairs, and also severely limits their display unless deemed relevant to serving an educational or historical purpose. But Cuomo said the rule likely needs to certain technological changes, so the Empire State doesn't get caught treading upon free speech protections codified in the U.S. Constitution's First Amendment. This country faces a pervasive growing attitude of intolerance and hate, what I've referred to in the bodily politic as an American cancer, Cuomo wrote in his approval message. By limiting the display and sale of the Confederate flag, Nazi swastika, and other symbols of hatred from being displayed or sold on state property, including state fairgrounds, this will help safeguard New Yorkers from the fear-instilling effects on these abhorrent symbols. He continued, while they fully support the spirit of this legislation, certain technical changes are necessary to balance the state's interest in preventing the use of hate symbols on state land with free speech protections embodied in the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Yeah, no, doing this on state grounds I do think is going to present real legal challenges to Andy Cuomo. Because, yes, that is going to be definitely a violation of the First Amendment. I mean, he couldn't go down into the mall and look at stores and say that you can't sell this. Not that I think that anybody would try to sell a Confederate flag in a mall in upstate New York. Definitely not in New York City, but not in upstate New York either. I don't think that would ever happen in New York. But regardless, Cuomo wouldn't be able to come out and say, you're not allowed to do this. He wouldn't. It would be a massive violation of the law. And yet, he thinks that this is okay because it's on state grounds. And he knows it's going to get challenged too. That's the worst part of it. He's sitting here and he's daring the Supreme Court to come out and say, oh, you know what? You're all Trump appointed now, so, well, most of you are Trump appointed at this point. And Republican, so defend the use of the swastika and the Nazi or in the Confederate flag, okay? Just defend it so that I can come out and tell them that you're Confederates and Nazis. I've got this real sneaking suspicion that that's the reason that this came up. So that the Supreme Court can come out and defend it. And now everyone can say that the Trump appointees are Nazis and Confederates. So, we'll see what happens off of that. I guarantee we're going to be seeing more of this story. All right. From the Block Crypto. Trump is reportedly considering pardon for Silk Road founder Ross Ulbricht. From Wolfie Zhao. The U.S. President Donald Trump is said to be weighing a pardon for Ross Ulbricht, a founder of the now-defunct dark web marketplace Silk Road, who is serving a life sentence. According to a report from the Daily Beast on Tuesday, the White House Counsel Office has been reviewing the documents related to Ulbricht's case. Citing 3 people with knowledge of the matter, the report said that Trump was informed of the case recently, as well as pleas from Ulbricht's allies. Based on 2 of the 3 people familiar with the discussion, the report added that Trump has, at times, privately expressed some sympathy for Ulbricht's situation. As such, Trump has been considering Ulbricht, among others, for the next round of commutations and pardons prior to the inauguration of his 2020 presidential opponent, Joe Biden, the report said. Ulbricht operates the Silk Road dark web marketplace under the alias of DPR, or Dread Pirate Roberts, from 2011 to 2013. The site, once a billion-dollar business used for selling drugs and weapons, was shut down by the FBI following the arrest of Ulbricht in late 2013. In 2015, he was sentenced to serving a double life sentence without the possibility of parole. It is unclear if or when the Trump administration would make a decision on the Ulbricht case. The Daily Beast said Ulbricht has gained support from some influential figures within Trump's political and social circle. So I don't know much about the Silk Road. I'm going to come out and tell you full on ignorance. I've heard rumors that there was some human trafficking that went along with there as well. If that's the case, then I can't support the commutation of this. But if this is just a way to get around what the government is doing and the government is regulating, then absolutely do it. Absolutely. The government can't tell you what it is. I mean, the Second Amendment comes out and says the government can't tell you what kind of weapons you can have. And if a guy can use technology to do it, good on him. It's certainly not a double life sentence. I would have to know more about this case to know whether or not this was even worth a double life sentence. Because right now, I'm not seeing any evidence that there should be a double life sentence. Unless, not even, if he was indirectly involved in somebody's murder. That shouldn't be a double life sentence. So I would have to see the justification for doing the double life sentence for this. Because I can't find any way to justify that. That's excessive. That is excessive punishment. If all that he did was traffic in drugs and guns. I'm sorry. I don't know if it's unpopular. I don't know. Well, it's probably not unpopular among my audience, but I don't know if it's unpopular among mainstream politics or anything else, but drugs and guns should not be giving you a double life sentence. There's no reason for that. Especially if you're indirectly involved. If you just made the website. If you really want to give a double life sentence to somebody who is selling the drugs and guns, get the first parties who are involved, the buyer and the seller, not the person who facilitated the transaction. So, we will see what happens with that. And once again, before I can say whether I think this is a good thing or a bad thing, I would have to know a lot more about what happened with this, what this means, and what was actually involved in this. All right, a rare offering from the Gateway Pundit. Yale epidemiology professor says hydroxychloroquine could save 100,000 lives, from Eric A. Blair. A Yale epidemiology professor says hydroxychloroquine, long touted by President Trump, could help save as many as 100,000 lives if used properly to treat COVID-19. Dr. Harvey Risch, if the anti-malaria drug were used today more widely in the U.S., especially as a prophylactic for medical workers, anywhere from 75,000 to 100,000 Americans could be saved. The reason the drug isn't being used is really just a part of the propaganda war. It's a political drug now, not a medical drug, Risch said on Fox News' Laura Ingraham show this week. I think we're basically fighting a propaganda war against all the medical facts and the colors. Not just population people, how they think about it, but the doctors as well. There are many doctors that I've gotten hostile remarks from saying that all the evidence is bad for it, and in fact, that is not true at all, he said. All the evidence is actually good for it when it's used in outpatient uses. Nevertheless, the only people who actually see that are a whole pile of doctors who are actually on the front lines treating those patients across the country, and they are the ones who are at risk for being forced not to do it. And, I mean, we saw some of this. We saw some people who had heart complications from hydroxychloroquine, and we saw people that it worked miraculously for. For the most part off of this. And yes, this became a political thing. I don't know if the numbers check out, because I'm not a medical doctor, but on every situation, you should be taking the advice of your doctor. Not a journalist on the Gateway Pundit, not a guy yelling into a microphone, not any of those people. Your doctor knows best what's going to work best for your body. And if your doctor thinks that hydroxychloroquine can do it, and the FDA allows it to be used because it's politically convenient, then yes, you should use it. If the doctor thinks that it'll put you in a massive cardiac arrest and eat the lining out of the walls of your heart, then you probably shouldn't use it. None of what's going on with coronavirus should be a blanket thing. As much as they tried to make it a blanket thing, none of this should be a blanket thing. A blanket top-down thing. This should always be individualistic. You do what's best for you. Not what the government thinks is best for everybody, and not what the government thinks is worst for everybody. What is best for you? And furthermore, Donald Trump did sign the right to try law into effect. So you should have the right to try an experimental medication if you think it'll work. If you and your doctor think it'll work and it'll be safe for you, you should have the right to try it. Even if it is the dreaded hydroxychloroquine. Alright, just a few more here. We'll do something I'm thankful for and head on out of here. From the Blaze, Paralympic swimmer denied entry into Canadian bookstore for not wearing a mask, which she can't put on herself since she was born without hands. From Dave Urbanski, a Canadian Paralympic swimmer who was born without hands and cannot put on a COVID-19 mask without assistance, said she was denied entry into a bookstore because she wasn't wearing a mask. Elizabeth Walker-Young, a 4-time Paralympic swimmer who lives in North Vancouver, told Global News that she had spoken to the mother of a boy with autism who cannot wear a mask and was denied entry into Indigo's Metrotown location in Burnaby late last month. With that, Walker-Young told the outlet that she decided to visit the bookstore's Broadway and Granville location in Vancouver. While Walker-Young has some fingers at the end of her arms, she told Global News that putting the mask on herself is out of the question. When I'm out with my daughter or my husband, they will help me put on the mask. But when I'm out in the world independently, I just can't do it. She told the outlet that she was denied entry to the bookstore. It's just not fair, Walker-Young told Global News. I'm not an anti-masker. I actually don't go out often because I'm trying not to make people feel uncomfortable, which is an awful way to navigate the world. The outlet said that Tina Chiao of Vancouver filed a human rights complaint after she and her son, who has autism, were denied entry into an Indigo store because he cannot wear a mask. Andrew also has a sensory processing disorder, Global News said, adding that wearing personal protective equipment of any kind, including non-medical masks or face shields, results in significant behavioral issues. All that's saying to me at this point is you should probably not go and shop at this Indigo bookstore because they're dicks. That's what that's telling me right there. Don't give these people your business. That's all that I have to say on that. All right. From CNBC, speaking of masks, Tom Cruise reportedly tears into film crew over breach of COVID rules. From Holly Elliott. A recording has emerged reportedly of Tom Cruise lambasting members of a film crew for not following COVID social distancing rules on the set of his latest movie, Mission Impossible 7. The recording, obtained by the UK's The Sun tabloid newspaper, contains audio reportedly of Cruise shouting at crew members he believed had breached the correct protocols. In its report, first published Tuesday, The Sun said in a tirade of left members of the crew stunned, but it does not name sources present at the recordings or the state when the recording was made. The New York Times has 2 sources confirming the authenticity of the recording. NBC News has not yet verified the recording and has contacted Cruise's representative, his attorney, and Paramount Pictures for comment, but has not received a response. In the recording, a man identified by the newspaper as Cruise can be heard shouting, "If I see you do it again, you're fucking gone. And if anyone in the crew does it, that's it. And you, too. And you, too. And you, don't ever fucking do it again." The person continues during the more than 3-minute recording. Is this just stardom? Or is this little guy syndrome? Because isn't Tom Cruise like 5'4", some ridiculously short height like that? He's a little guy as far as I remember. Maybe not 5'4", but if I remember correctly, he's a little dude. So I don't know if this is short guy syndrome or what's going on with that. I know that the Hollywood movie sets are rife with regulations. I know Britt has been talking about what goes on down there. I'm not going to say how she's adjacent to it. And she's very open about it, but I'll let her say it. But she's adjacent to the movie industry, and she sees and talks about some of the things that go on sets down there and the COVID rules. But once again, we look back at this and we realize the fact that the government in California has deemed the movie industry an essential industry. So these millionaires in California can go back to work. These millionaires and billionaires, actors and actresses, can go back to work. But they can't open a restaurant. So, yeah, that's what I've got to say about that. From The Blaze. Chicago cops raid wrong home and handcuff innocent naked woman. The city tried to keep the video from being released. From Breck Dumas. Newly released body camera footage shows Chicago Police Department officers raiding the wrong home and handcuffing an innocent woman for 20 minutes while she was nude before realizing their mistake. The police had the wrong address from an informant. Slow clap. City officials are under fire for making a last-ditch effort to block a local television station from posting video on Tuesday of the incident that occurred nearly 2 years ago. Last year, officers broke into the home of longtime social worker Anjanette Young, who says she just arrived home from work on February 21st and had undressed in her room when the police charged inside at 7 p.m. with guns drawn. Following the incident, Young filed a Freedom of Information Act request to obtain the body camera footage, but the department denied her requests, according to WMMB-TV. But Young recently received the video, and it was aired Tuesday by WMMB, despite Chicago city attorneys filing an emergency motion in an attempt to block the outlet from doing so. The video shows officers breaking in the door, and Young pleading to know what was going on as she stands nude, with her arms in the air, in the living room, while the police run through her home. She can be seen sobbing, repeatedly insisting to the room full of male officers that they have the wrong house. At one point she says, "This cannot be right. How is this legal? I smell a lawsuit." After a few minutes, an officer places a jacket around her shoulders, but the front part of her naked body, of course, remains exposed. Then an officer wraps one of Young's blankets around her body, but she was unable to keep herself covered because of her hands being cuffed behind her back. She pleads with the officers while telling them that she lives alone, and she's lived in her home for 4 years. She cries, "There's no gun in this place. I'm a social worker. I've been a social worker for 20 years. I follow the law. I don't get in trouble for anything. I don't do illegal stuff. I'm not that person. You've got the wrong person." I smell a lawsuit. Once again. So yes. I mean, wouldn't it be nice if there was a constitution that prevented this kind of thing from happening? Where you had to announce your entry and not have a no-knock raid or warrant? Wouldn't that be nice? If you had to identify yourself as police and be invited in, because the Constitution says so, even with a warrant. And of course, the Chicago machine getting it wrong, on top of everything. According to the Chicago Tribune, WMMB has reportedly extensively on Chicago police officers raiding the wrong home and called Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot's attorney's request to block the station from airing the report as extraordinary. No, people should know this goes on. People should absolutely know this goes on. On both directions, too. You know, when police do good things, they should get credit for it. Like when that lady pulled that dude in the wheelchair out from in front of the train at the last possible second. That was a good use of police work. A policeman, or woman rather, I believe it was, a policewoman out patrolling, seeing somebody about to die and putting herself in harm's way. And if I remember correctly, didn't she get injured at some point by the train too? Putting herself in harm's way to protect a member of the community. That is a proper use of the police. But a no-knock warrant in the wrong house because of a clerical error, in a world where no-knock warrants shouldn't exist in the first place, I want to know what the original charge was that they were no-knock warranting over. Where it was that they were actually intending to go, and what the charges were. That's what I want to know about this. That is exactly what I want to hear about this, is what was actually supposed to be going on with this. How this got messed up. Because that seems to be missing from all these stories. All right, got just a couple more here. We'll do something I'm thankful for and head on out of here. From the local.dk out of Denmark. Denmark to classify immigrants from Muslim countries separately in crime statistics. Immigration and Integration Minister There you go, another left-wing outlet that makes sure that you have to use your ads. And they waited for me to get down into this, so I can't go and archive it right up on the air. They left this one open, so I couldn't go and archive it while I was up on the air. Fuck you. Alright, we'll cover that one tomorrow because Midget B is really interested in that over on the Discord server. Alright, Indiana murder suspect, 22, escapes when prisoner transport van stops at McDonald's. From David Arrow. A manhunt was underway this week for an Indiana man charged with murder, who authorities say escaped custody after a prisoner transport van stopped at a McDonald's, according to multiple reports. An agent from Ready Transports of Green Bay, Wisconsin, was transporting Leon Taylor, 22, from Chicago to Lake County, Indiana, on Monday when the prisoner jumping through the van's open window in the city of Gary, despite wearing a chain around his waist, handcuffs, and a leg restraint, Lake County Sheriff Oscar Martinez wrote in the news release. After the agent notifies authorities of the escape, officers with Lake County Sheriff's Department responded to the scene, along with Lake County Aviation Unit helicopter and K-9 unit, according to the release. A manhunt had yet to locate Taylor, who remained at large as of early Wednesday. We're looking into several promising leads as the investigation continues to develop, Martinez said. Authorities said Taylor was flown from Texas to Chicago's O'Hare International Airport. The transport company was in charge of picking him up and driving him to Indiana's Lake County Jail. Before arriving at the jail, the Ready agent pulled into the McDonald's drive-thru to make sure the prisoner was fed, Martinez said, according to the Times of Northwest Indiana. While in line at the drive-thru, Taylor requested that the agent roll down a window so he could remove his protective mask and spit out the window, Martinez said. After doing so, Taylor fled out the window. The sheriff added that the leg brace should have prevented the prisoner from running, but for some reason it didn't work properly. You think? Taylor is wanted on a murder charge in East Chicago, Indiana, authorities said. He is considered to be dangerous, the release added. So, we will see what happens with that. Hopefully this guy gets recovered soon, but yeah. I mean, wouldn't you think that you'd have like a bag lunch or something for this? Wouldn't a person think that this is something that would possibly have been figured out long, long ago at some point like this? I don't understand. I really don't. How this is a thing. How this is a possible thing. Because you would think at one point or another that there would be preventative measures in place to make sure that this never happens. I mean, a sack lunch can't be that expensive, especially if the guy's going to McDonald's to feed a bus full of people. But it happened. Why are they contracting from out of state too? I mean, this guy is coming from into Illinois, so yeah, there's going to be some interstate commerce that goes from there. But why are they taking a bus from Green Bay? I don't understand why they're taking a bus company from there to do this. I mean, Green Bay is 4 hours from downtown Chicago. 4 hours just from downtown Chicago. You're saying that there isn't a transport company in Chicago itself or in Indiana to do this for them? I don't understand this. But, yeah, he's out. He's running. I hope they find him. He's running, though. All right, last one here. Then we'll do something I'm thankful for. From the Daily Mail. San Francisco. Actually, this was the thing I was thankful for, wasn't it? All right, so this is the thing that I'm thankful for. San Francisco to rename Abraham Lincoln High School because the former president did not demonstrate that Black Lives Matter to him, as woke renaming committee also takes aim at Democrat Senator Dianne Feinstein and Teddy Roosevelt. From Rachel Sharp. A San Francisco district is planning to rename a school named after Abraham Lincoln because the former president did not demonstrate that Black Lives Matter to him. The president, who is often held up as an American hero for abolishing slavery, is just one of 44 historical figures soon to have their names scratched off schools within the San Francisco Unified School District. Other names include George Washington, Herbert Hoover, and Senator Dianne Feinstein, whose names will be stripped from the Dianne Feinstein Elementary School for allowing Confederate flag to fly outside City Hall back in 1984 when she was mayor. They're really looking for stuff right now, aren't they? The renaming of the schools comes as a part of a nationwide reckoning around racial justice that has seen Confederate flags banned, military bases renamed, and statues toppled of racist and Confederate figures across America in the wake of police killing of George Floyd. The district's renaming committee decided Lincoln is not worthy of keeping his name on Abraham Lincoln School because the majority of his policies proved to be detrimental to Native Americans. So I look back at this. I mean, I'm not going to say the name of the school because it's a small town. But I went to an elementary school named after a historical figure. I grew up in a small city that you guys actually probably would all know the name of because of its relevance to another major historical figure whose life was made into a TV series. And these people were terrible to the Native Americans, but where I live, we look at history and we learn from it. Yes, we can look back and have the conversation about how Abe Lincoln was. He destroyed habeas corpus. He was a terrible president. But we can learn from it. And he also did have good qualities that came with him. He did abolish slavery. It probably would have happened very shortly after he did, had he not done it. It probably would have happened at some point, and somebody else would have taken the credit for it. But he did abolish slavery. George Washington founded this country where people can come out and say nasty, horrible things about the president for 4 years, and then just go back to sleep as soon as Joe Biden is inaugurated. Or looks like he's imminently about to be inaugurated, as we saw with the news cycle from this. Roosevelt, Johnson, all these people, all these historical people, even Feinstein. Now, yes, no, you probably shouldn't have waved the Confederate flag outside of a California building. That's probably frowned upon. But regardless, it gives a conversation piece. It gives us a chance to learn something about the Confederacy, about the ability to stand up against the U.S. government and say, no, we won't take your draconian laws. And it's very interesting, the fact that they don't want you to know about that. They don't want you to know that you can leave the U.S. Just like I said when we were talking about how liberty is portrayed in the media with the Maquis. You're just mad because we want to leave and nobody leaves paradise. And we're looking at this too now in the American experiment and people talking about actually leaving, which I don't support the secession. I do not. But I support the reasons why people would want to. And I understand the reasons why people would want to. They have the right to do so, if they really want to. I support their ideas. I support their pushes, if they want to go through and petition their state houses to start to talk about secession, purchasing up some of the land and making their own nation out of it. That's between them and their state houses. The option should be open. That's part of the reason that we're in such a mess in this country right now, is because everyone believes that the option isn't there because of Abraham Lincoln. But taking his name out of history is not going to make us have the conversation about this, and we need to have the conversation. We need to have the conversation about habeas corpus and all the other conversations that got skipped in school for us ourselves. I didn't know about habeas corpus and Abraham Lincoln's suspension of it until earlier this year. I didn't know anything about that until earlier this year because it was skipped in school. So absolutely, let's have the conversation. Let's talk about people wanting to leave paradise and figure out how to live on their own without a massive federal government. And let's just say for a half a second, and I want to put this thought experiment out there. And once again, I don't support secession because I know that if we do secede, it's going to get even bloodier by the end of it. As all the other American and United States come together and say, wait a second, we want our land back. It is going to get bloodier as they come in and try to force these states to come back in. That's the reason I don't support it. is because I know that the alternative is bloodier. But as we go into this, it would be an interesting thought experiment to see what would happen when California and New York suddenly don't have the resources coming back to them that they do, like the Colorado River and the Hoover Dam. It would be interesting to see what it is that they do once all those resources are dried up for them. And we will see who collapses first, because that's the thing. Well, California pays all these taxes, and we pay the majority of taxes, which goes back to state aid for the red states. And the red states come up and say, well, we supply all the blue states. We supply them with textiles and grains and farming and manufacture that they can't do in their states. Well, that's the only reason I would support secession right now, is to see. Let's put our money where our mouths are. Let's see which country would collapse first. I got a feeling I know, but we would have to look back and actually see which country would collapse first. But I'm thankful that I live in a place where all of this doesn't get scratched out, that the history doesn't go away, that we still get to see and talk about these kind of things. That's what I'm thankful for. That's going to be the news today. So we're going to head on out of here for the day. I got to throw some breakfast down and get ready to go to work. No daily ignoramus today. Well, not this morning. He's going to start doing it later on in the day, as long as he's living with his mom. But make sure that you check out my friends, the Daily Ignoramus and the Generational Gap tonight on their respective channels. Go over there and check them out. Love to see you guys in the live chat. Love to hang out with you guys. And love to be on the other side of the shitposting side for a little while too. So hope to see you guys there. Otherwise, I'll be back here tomorrow with more Contemporary. Until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary.